All right, next in line is the Juvenile Fillies Turf, one of these races that was added to the Breeders' Cup menu a few years ago. Now, these are the horses you see right there, the 14 horses at the top of the pre-entries. All right, Winter Memories as the 3-1 favorite pegged by Brad Free, together from the Aidan O'Brien barn, the second choice in his line at 4-1. Now, two horses on this list, Geordie Y and Theskin's Theory, both have first preference in the Juvenile Fillies dirt, so chances are they won't run. Silent Joy and Dos Lunas would be the two that would substitute into the field if both of those horses do indeed go the route of the Juvenile Fillies dirt. Now, my top five, pretty easy choice for number one, in my opinion, although there are some decent horses in here. But Winter Memories, the filly out of Memories of Silver, who was an unbelievably talented grass mare. Never won a Breeders' Cup race. She was one of those tweeners. She had to run against the boys in the Breeders' Cup Mile and finished fifth back in 2000 or back in '96. But Winter Memories has had two starts, both on turf. Won them both very impressively, especially the last one in the Miss Grillo. New Normal won the Natalma at Woodbine in front-running fashion. Cathman Blue was wide on both turns and won her race at Keeneland for Kenny McPeak. More Than Real, trained by Todd Pletcher, was second to New Normal at Woodbine, and there you see the Aidan O'Brien filly together. Now, Winter Memories in that Miss Grillo she was exceptionally impressive coming from off the pace.
She went around them like the others were standing still, and she also started a move, stopped, and then commenced the move that we were all impressed by. So you're right. I mean, she beat them very easily at Belmont over what was a fairly soft course.
I mean, I've got her from watching the replay 4 wide on the turn, 6 wide entering the stretch. As you see, she's the gray on the far outside, and watch how she just totally swoops and runs down Fancy Point, the pace setter on the inside, and in the blink of an eye, she's suddenly 3-4 lengths in front. And Little Green, too. She hopped over to her left lead there and then switches back to her right lead, I think, when she gets closer to the finish. Maybe not. But, she's still got some room to improve, and she sure put a beating on him in the Miss Grillo.
I was reading the Brooklyn Backstretch blog, and the writer of that, Teresa Gennaro, was sitting next to Jimmy Toner during the race. And she reported that as Winter Memories crossed the wire, as we just saw, Toner said, "There's your Breeders' Cup winner." Now, that's confidence, but let's hope he didn't jinx himself.
She also had an exceptional workout, so she's training well. New Normal is no slouch. She looked pretty impressive winning the Natalma. She did it in front-running fashion. There is a little more other speed in here. Fancy Point has some speed, but yeah, I do think New Normal probably sets the pace in here, depending on the post position draw, perhaps. But she's also out of a mare called New Economy that won. It was a graded stakes winner that won over $400,000 and ran as far as 1.5 miles on the turf. So, despite her running style, the distance, certainly, the mile, is not going to be an issue at all. She proved that last time.
Yeah, and I think people left those Woodbine 2-year-old grass races, the Natalma and the Summer Stakes, being much more impressed by the fillies, led by New Normal, than they were the males.
Exactly. I certainly felt that way. Now, let's talk about the European filly Together. Last year, the same outfit, Coolmore, Aidan O'Brien, sent a filly over here for this very race named Lily Langtree. Lily Langtree competed in many of the same races as Together did during her 2-year-old season last year. Lily Langtree was more accomplished. She did better in those races than Together. Lily Langtree came to Santa Anita and laid an egg. Now, you can't really assume because of that Together is going to be overrated in here. But what did you make of her European form?
Well, you keep in mind with especially like the juvenile filly or juvenile turf races or the marathon, you don't want to draw too many conclusions from what's a very limited sample. But Together is part of the reason why I'm a little leery of Winter Memories, because I have a lot of respect for Together. Although I'll tell you one thing, this horse is a head case, Together. I watched her last couple of races, and in the Fillies Mile, her last time out in the Tattersalls, if you want a horse coming out of that race who's professional and just does things the way a racehorse should, you'll probably want Tale Untold, who was right with him in that race. If you like horses that are green as can be, and you're thinking that they're going to improve next time, then you want Together, because Together kind of ran like the hypotenuse of a triangle, whereas Tale Untold ran the straight line of the triangle. I'm scared of Together just because I don't trust her to to run professionally. She, in her race 2 back, the Fillies Mile, she tried to get out, but White Moonstone was coming up alongside her and kind of forced her to stay in, whereas in the Tattersall, she had every opportunity to get out, and she took full advantage.
Yeah, I mean, she was the best horse in her last race. If you have a chance to go back and maybe on YouTube watch that video, you'll see what we're talking about. Just as she made the lead with maybe an eighth of a mile to go, she quite literally made a left turn. Not a turn, but at a severe angle all the way out to the outside fence almost. It cost her any chance of winning, so it does certainly make you a little concerned about what she might do on the tighter American turns. All right, so that's that. Oh, now you're under the radar.
Yes.
Yeah,
now,
let's do
I already mentioned my concern about Together, and Randy, here's my concern about Winter Memories.
I like the sound effects, by the way.
Yeah, that's radar. That's radar. To me, no horse came into last year's Breeders' Cup more impressive on paper than Interactif. He looks so good in the Bourbon, way wide. How could this horse get beat? And when you introduce him to the higher level or to the greater level of company presented by the Europeans, sometimes our American superstars don't look as good with that step up. And a lot of it, these big impressive wins like Winter Memories had, could be a function of who they were in against. Now, there was one horse who I was also watching in that Miss Grillo by the name of A Brilliant Idea, who impressed me at a race in Monmouth. She was beaten by Winter Memories and came back to run a very uninspiring race in an allowance at Keeneland. So I have questions about what was behind Winter Memories in the Miss Grillo, and that takes me to my under-the-radar horse, which is going to be Quiet Oasis, another Irish bred trained by Brian Meehan. I believe this horse, Quiet Oasis, was a recent purchase by J. Paul Redham, who has had success buying horses and bringing them over to the Breeders' Cup in the past. His last race was the Park Stakes at the Curragh. The comment in the racing form says 1 pace late. I respectfully disagree with that. I don't think he was clear in the stretch. I thought he did come on, and I think with a cleaner trip, though he's still looking for his first win on grass, I think he might be the one at inflated odds that could upset the apple cart, especially given the greenness I cited with Together earlier.
A good rule of thumb, by the way, if you haven't heard this before, when you're trying to gauge the European horses and when they come over here and run against our turf horses, and I'm just talking strictly on the grass, if a horse is a Group 3 level horse, wins a Group 3 race in Europe, they're typically capable of beating Grade 2 horses over here. If they're Group 2 over there, they can be Grade 1 over here. So just kick them up a notch when they come here. And when you're trying to figure out, okay, now how do the Americans? I mean, if you're talking about some accomplished Europeans on the turf, it had better be an above average group of American turf horses to be able to beat those Europeans, because they come over here with an advantage. If it's just a normal, in this particular bunch, a normal Juvenile Fillies turf bunch or a slightly subpar, then the Europeans can have a chance to dominate in a situation like that.
And Randy, we got a question from CW on the chat.
CW. Okay.
C-Dub, I call him. Regarding most of the horses in the Juvenile Fillies have run on turf in their last race. A few are coming off synthetic. In your opinion, is synthetic performance correlated with success on the grass?
How much time do we have here? To me, you've got, I mean, obviously we've got 3 distinctly different racing surfaces in America: dirt, synthetic, and grass. And when you look at most synthetic racing surfaces, I'm going to toss Hollywood Park out for just a second. I think you should look at them from a handicapping perspective as being about 70% turf-oriented, running style-oriented, and 30% dirt. It's not a hybrid in that it's like sort of right in the middle of dirt and synthetic. It definitely skews more toward turf. Late speed is much more significant in synthetic races than it is on regular dirt racing. Now, when you get to Hollywood Park, it still skews more toward grass, but not quite as much as other synthetic racing surfaces. So, yes, there is quite a bit of synergy between grass racing and synthetic racing. That's why the European horses did so well at the Oak Tree meet when they shipped over for the last 2 Breeders' Cups. That's why you see horses like Gio Ponte, and you can name many of them, just go back and forth between dirt and synthetics, and seemingly about the same on both. Dirt, though, it's a completely different animal. You agree? What's your thought?
I think synthetic is a positive indicator for turf performance, and I haven't thought it through as deeply as you have, but certainly seems to be the case at Keeneland, certainly seemed to be the case in the Breeders' Cup Classic last year, and I think it certainly seems to be the case in most garden variety races.
And Zenyatta would probably be a fantastic horse on the grass as well.
Be interesting to see her try that. I guess we won't, but we can't complain where her career is concerned.